Hello students, hope you all are in fine spirits. Today I've come up with yet another video on corporate governance, and this will be the third video in this series on the same topic. Today the topic is provision for corporate governance in the Companies Act 2013. So the focus of today's discussion will be on what are the various provisions that have been made in the Companies Act 2013 regarding the corporate governance. So we'll discuss one by one in a point wise. The first is regarding composition of board of directors, which has been contained in the section 149 and 151. Regarding composition of board of directors, the provisions are like there should be minimum number of directors which has been specified. For public company it is 3, for private company it is 2, and for one person company it is 1. And the maximum number of directors is 15, and if the number of directors has to be increased from 15, then a special resolution has to be passed in the meeting for increasing the number of directors. And at least one director should be resident in India in the previous calendar year for not less than 182 days. So in the previous calendar year, that is from January to December in the previous year, that director must have resided in India for a minimum of 182 days. Then about independent directors, it has been stated that any public company should have at least 1/3 of the total directors as independent directors, and independent directors are those who are not related in any manner to any of the promoter or any of the managerial personnel or any other employee of the company. So at least 1/3 of the directors, total number of directors in a public company, should be independent. In a public company whose paid up share capital is more than or equal to 10 crores, or turnover more than or equal to 100 crores, or outstanding liabilities greater than 50 crores in the last financial statement, in such companies the minimum number of directors who are independent should be 2. If any vacancy occurs in independent director's post, then such vacancy must be filled within 3 months of that vacancy or before the next AGM, whichever is later. There is provision regarding women director in the board of directors composition. So every listed company or public company whose paid up share capital is more than or equal to 100 crores or turnover more than or equal to 300 crores, they should have at least one woman director, and they should appoint such director, woman director, within 6 months of the incorporation. Means it cannot be delayed beyond a period of 6 months from the date of incorporation of any company. And if vacancy occurs in the post of women director, the provisions are same as that of independent directors. Means within 3 months of the vacancy, that post has to be filled, or before the date of the AGM, whichever is later. And there is also provision regarding small shareholders directors. What are small shareholders? Means any shareholders who have shares of worth nominal value rupees 20,000 or less. So now if that is the extent to which they are owners in the shares, means less than 20,000, then one or more director can be appointed on behalf of these small shareholders. So this was the composition regarding minimum number of directors, maximum number of directors, and independent directors and women director, and also regarding small shareholders directors. Now after composition, let's move on to the director's responsibility statement. Shortly we know it as DRS, and provisions related to this are contained in the section 134 subsection 5 of the Companies Act 2013. So what are the main aspects on which DRS is related are: the first one is the compliance to accounting standards explanations for variations, if any. It means that board of directors have to make a statement that the company has complied fully to the accounting standards, and if there is variation of any kind, the causes or explanations regarding why such variation has been made should be provided. Then the second statement includes application of accounting policies to ensure true and fair view of financial reports. Means all the accounting policies have been abided or followed while preparation of financial reports, so that the financial reports can depict true and fair view of the company. The next statement is regarding adequate accounts. They must state that all required accounts have been maintained duly in the company. Then accounts, whatever accounts have been prepared, they must be prepared on the basis of going on concern concept. It means it is assumed that the company will continue operating irrespective of shareholders coming or going out. Means it is not related to the entry or exit of the shareholders may come or go, but the entity will exist and to continue with its operation. So on this basis of accounting, that is one of the basic concept of accounting, all the accounts should have been prepared. Then the next one is setting up of adequate financial control and its effective operations. So every corporate entity should have a good financial control system, and it should be operational, and this should be stated in the director's responsibility statement. And the next statement is compliance to all applicable laws and its effective operations. Apart from accounting standards, all the applicable laws have been conformed or followed should also be stated in the director's responsibility statement. Now the next point is regarding additional disclosure in board of directors report. So apart from director's responsibility statement, there are some additional disclosures that has to be made, and provisions to this are contained in the section 134 subsection 3. For any listed company or public company with paid up capital of 25 crores or more in the previous financial year, this disclosure clause is applicable, and the disclosure should be about the manner in which the formal annual evaluation of its own performances, the performances of the committee and individual directors have been conducted. Means how the performance have been evaluated should be additionally disclosed in the board of directors report. The next important point is regarding the duties of directors, that has been contained in section 166. The duties include the board of directors should act according to articles of association. Every company has its own articles of association, the guiding principles on the basis of which operations are to be conducted or carried on. So these articles of association should be complied with. Then the next duty is to ensure that the directors have acted in good faith, that is, they have tried their level best, strived to protect and promote the interest of the company and all its stakeholders. The next duty is to exercise whatever responsibilities they have been assigned in an honest manner, in a diligent way, carefully and independently, so that the corporate affairs are carried on smoothly and efficiently. Then the next duty of the directors are to not get involved in any situation which might create conflicting interest. Means they should not get into any type of situation or act or transaction which might conflict the interest of the various stakeholders. Then the next duty is they should also not strive to get any undue gain to himself or to relatives or to partners or associates of themselves. So means any manner directors are not supposed to get any undue favor either to them or to their relatives or to their associates or partners from the company. and the next duty is not to assign directors office. So these were some of the duties that were contained in the section 166 which have to be performed by the directors of the company. Now the next provision is related to independent directors, and it has been contained in the section 149. So independent directors provisions related are in section 149, and this is very important to understand. As we've discussed earlier, who are independent directors means independent directors, as the name suggests, are those who are not related to any key managerial, executive or personal or any employee of the concern or any promoter. Means they're not linked to them, so that they can act independently in promoting the interest of the company without any biases, without any prejudices. So first let's see the qualifications for independent directors. So any person who is an expert or experienced person or person of integrity and who has no knowledge of various disciplines qualifies to be an independent director. Means he should be a skillful person, knowledgeable person and expert in his respective department. Then the next qualification that is that he should not be a promoter or related to any promoter of the company or the holding company or the subsidiary or any associate company of that particular company. Then the next, they should not also have pecuniary relation to the companies or holding companies or subsidiary or associate companies, or even their promoters or directors or managers, and in the last 2 immediate preceding years. That is important. Then the next qualification that is also important is neither he, that is director, or his relatives should be key managerial personnel or employee of the company in the preceding 3 financial years, and neither he, that is director, or his relative should or has been the owner or partner of any firm of auditors or company secretaries or company auditors or any legal advisory firm who has been dealing with the company and the gross turnover of such firm is 10% or more related to that particular company. So the director should not be in relation or having relation or partnership with such kind of firms. Only then he can qualify to be an independent director of a company. Then director should also not hold, or either his relatives also, 2% or more of the voting rights of the company. If any director or his relative holds 2% or more of the voting rights, then they disqualify for being an independent director. And the last qualification is the CEO or the director of any not-profit organization receiving 25% or more of its receipts from the company or the related company can also not become the independent director. It means if any person who wants to be a director should not be chairperson or CEO of any not-for-profit organization whose 25% or more income or subscription is coming from that company. So these were some of the qualifications of independent directors. Now let's see what are the provisions related to their remuneration, means how payment would be made to them. So independent directors may be paid by way of sitting fees, that is fee for their services, then reimbursement of expenses or participation in board or other meetings, means if they participate in any meeting of the board or shareholders or AGM, then the expenses of such participation will be reimbursed. Then they can also get profit related commissions, but very important point here is they cannot be given stock options. So no stock option provision is there for independent directors. Now the term or the tenure of independent directors. So an independent director can have 5 consecutive years of tenure, means one tenure includes 5 consecutive years. Reappointment also can be done for a second consecutive term, but this requires special resolution. So through special resolution, a second continuous or consecutive term can be assigned to an independent director. And after a break of 3 years, the third term can also be given, or a person qualifies to get that third term after a gap of 3 years, provided in that 3 year there has been compliance to all the legal provisions that are provided in this regard. Now let's come to the what are the roles and functions or duties of independent directors. So when we talk about duties of independent directors, means the first thing is that they should be able to take independent judgments regarding strategies or policies or performances or risk management or financial matters or any managerial issues, means without any biasness or without any prejudices or without any favoritism. They should pass or make individual or independent judgments. Now the second function is they should be able to make objective evaluation of board of directors and management's performances and duly report about it. Then next one is they should be able to ensure the integrity of financial information and financial control systems, means whatever financial information is delivered through financial reports and whatever financial control system has been set up, it should be integrity. There should be integrity in it. And then they should safeguard the interest of all the stakeholders of the company, not only the shareholders. Then they should be able to balance conflicting interest, means any transaction or any decision or any policy which can create conflicting interest scenario should be addressed properly. Then they should be able to determine remuneration, appointment or removal of key managerial personnel or executives. They should uphold company's interest as a topmost priority, means apart from everything, the first and foremost thing that should come to their mind is promoting the interest of the company in the priority basis. Then the next one is they should be timely provided the facility of induction, updates, refreshments of skills and knowledge and familiarity with company activities, so that they can impart their duties properly. Then the next one is they should be able to take appropriate clarifications or professional advice and opinions. There should be no binding on them regarding getting services from experts outside, means they can consult any CAs or CAS or auditors or financial analysts for getting any type of expert advice which might be needed in decision making process. Then they have the duty to attend all the board of directors meetings or shareholders meetings or committee meetings or AGMs of the company. They should ensure all their concerns on company's affairs, and it should be duly addressed to the board and even recorded in the minutes of the meetings. They should also keep themselves well informed about the company and its environment, both internal environment as well as external environment. There should be no unfair obstruction to the company's affairs from the activities of the independent directors, means they should not act in any way which can create obstruction or hurdle in executing or operating company's affairs. And a report should be given or provided relating to their concerns about any unethical, unlawful or illegal acts of the company, if so. Now the next important point is regarding board committees. So the board committees can be of three types. The first is audit committee, and provisions related to audit committee has been contained in the section 177. Now what audit committee can be formed in companies who are listed or public company with paid up share capital of more than or equal to 10 crores, or a turnover more than or equal to 100 crores, or outstanding loans, debentures or other deposits exceeding 50 crores. So if these three conditions are fulfilled, then audit committee can be formed in that particular company. And in this audit committee, minimum 3 directors should be there, and independent directors should be in majority. Means dependent directors or a director from the company itself should be less in numbers, and independent directors should be greater in numbers. They should be in majority. Then the chairperson and the members of this committee should be capable of reading and understanding financial statements. So audit committee members should be able to understand and read financial statements. And what are the functions of audit committee? So audit committee has basically to investigate matters included in the terms of reference, like appointment or remuneration or removal of auditors, or review of the performance of auditors, or valuation of assets and liabilities, or preparation of accounts or financial control systems. Any matters means which have been referred to them, and with special reference of any particular matter by the board of directors. So they have to investigate on these matters. And also they can take or obtain any professional advice or expertise from outside if required. Now the next one or next committee is the nomination and remuneration committee, and the provisions related to this is given in section 178 of the Companies Act. For companies having more than 1000 shareholders or debenture holders or deposit holders or any other security holders at any time in the financial year, if the number exceeds 1000, then nomination and remuneration committee is formed. And as the name itself suggests, that this committee is basically formed to look into the matters related to nomination and remuneration of key managerial personnel and other executives of the company, and auditors and other employees of the company. So they overall look into the nomination and remuneration, and who are the people who are qualified for a particular post, and what should be their remuneration, how they will be appointed, how they will be removed, or how succession planning can be done regarding a particular post, and all these matters are looked upon by this committee. And the next third committee is the stakeholders committee, and the relationship of this committee is related to stakeholders, and provisions are contained in the section 178 of the Companies Act. So a chairperson who is a non-executive director, and other members who are decided by the board are constituted in this committee. It means this committee has a chairperson who is a non-executive director, and other members which have been prescribed or nominated by the board of directors. And what are the functions of this committee? This committee's main or important role is to resolve any type of grievances of the stakeholders or security holders. If the security holder or stakeholder, any of the stakeholder, has any type of grievance, such grievance is addressed, and solutions are provided to them by this committee. Apart from all these important provisions under respective sections, there are some other provisions also in the Companies Act related to corporate governance, and let's discuss in brief some of these extra provisions. The first one is related to code of conduct. Every company has to frame out a code of conduct. It is laid down by all the board of members and senior management, and it is applied to on them. And this code of conduct should also be reflected on the company's official website, and true, fair and honest compliance to these code of conduct should be ensured by the board of directors and the key managerial personnel of the company. The next important provision is regarding whistleblower policy. Whistleblower policy means the person or the party who draws the attention or concern towards anything illegal or unwanted or fraudulent activities or unethical activities going on in the company. So there should be a vigil mechanism or mechanism to address these kind of whistleblowing acts of any of the person or any party concerned. And the very important thing here is that if any party takes such kind of step, then that party or person should be provided due protection or safety. Means no action can be taken against them, because it is their duty to throw light or bring to light these kinds of unlawful acts. And if someone initiates, then the interest or the interest should be protected, or they should be given safety. The next one is regarding board of directors framework and implementation and monitoring regarding a risk management system. So there should be risk management system, a mechanism which can actually analyze what are the various inherent risks in both internal and external risks, and how those risks can be mitigated or minimized, or how they will be managed. So for this, companies have risk management committees also, having a chairperson and various members who look into the risk management activities of the company, so that the risks are averted, minimized, and its impact on the company is least or minimum. Then there are provisions relating to disclosures. Disclosures means providing information, relevant informations to various parties, various stakeholders, whichever is necessary. So disclosures relating to material related party transactions means if any transaction is being taken place in a company with any related party, means if the party with which the transaction is about to be done or it's going to take place should not be related with any of the internal party or internal director or promoter or any key managerial personnel. And if it is the case, then such a related party transaction should be brought into notice of all the board of directors and respective forum. Then disclosure should be regarding accounting treatments, means how accounting treatments or what kind of accounting treatments have been followed. Then related to remuneration to directors, means what should be and what are the directors remuneration. It should be open and transparent. Then managerial discussions and an analysis report should also be provided. Means information related to such analysis by managers should be disclosed or given or provided. Then disclosure is also related to information of material in nature to shareholders. Means whatever shareholders who are the real owners of the business need information to assess and to know the picture of a report of the company. They should be provided access to all kinds of information. And disclosure should also be related to proceeds from public issues, right issues, preference issues, etc. Means whatever issues, shares or debentures have been made by the companies, what are the proceeds from such issues should also be disclosed duly in the report. The next provision is related to the chief executive officers or chief financial officers certification about some or specific particulars. There are particular documents or facts which needs to be certified by these officers, and without their certification, such documents cannot be presented in the meeting or any other place where the reporting is required. And very important, whatever annual reports of the company are prepared, there is a provision for separate section on corporate governance in these reports. So nowadays companies, while making their annual reports, provide a separate section about corporate governance and how the company has complied with such corporate governance system that was prevalent in their company. So a compliance report is to be given in the annual report, and this compliance report must be duly signed by the authorities, and also it should be certified from the auditor and company secretaries. So these were some of the extra or other provisions made in the Companies Act 2013 related to corporate governance. So I hope this video will definitely help you in developing an understanding related to provisions on corporate governance in the Companies Act 2013. So that's all for today. Have a good day.